The encounter, it was a quiet night. The stars were out, the moon was full, and the road was empty. Jake Collins drove his old pickup truck along the forest highway, humming softly to a tune playing on the radio. He had just finished a long shift at the factory and was looking forward to a warm meal and some sleep, but the universe had other plans. As he turned around a bend, his headlights caught something. Two figures standing at the side of the road. They looked small, thin, and lost. Jake hit the brakes. His truck came to a slow stop, and he leaned forward to get a better look. They were girls. Or they looked like girls, barefoot, wearing strange, torn clothes. Their skin had a soft glow, almost like it was lit from the inside. Their eyes, big, bright, and not human. Jake blinked. Were they hurt? Lost? Actors shooting a prank video? He stepped out of the truck, keeping his hands visible. "Hey there," he said, trying to sound calm. "Are you okay?" No answer. The girls just stared at him. One of them held the other's hand tightly. She looked scared. Jake moved slowly, like approaching a frightened animal. "I won't hurt you," he said. "Are you lost? Do you need help?" The older one tilted her head. Then she spoke. Not English. Not any language Jake had ever heard. Just soft sounds, almost like music. Jake had a strange feeling in his chest. Fear, but also curiosity. "Okay," he said, taking off his jacket. "It's cold. Here, take this." He held it out. After a moment, the older girl stepped forward and took it. She wrapped it around the younger one, who shivered in silence. "They're freezing," Jake muttered to himself, "and hungry." He opened the truck door and pointed. "Come, it's warm inside." The girls looked at each other, then at him. Slowly, they climbed into the truck. Jake got in and drove. For a few minutes, no one spoke. The radio played quietly. Jake glanced at them. They sat close together, eyes wide, hands in their laps. "I guess you don't speak English," he said, half laughing. "Or maybe you're just shy." The younger one coughed. It sounded dry and weak. Jake frowned. "Okay, first, food. Then we'll figure this out." He stopped at a small diner that was still open. "Wait here," he told them. Inside, he grabbed some sandwiches, bottled water, and a pack of cookies. When he returned, the girls were staring up at the stars through the windshield. "Here," he said, handing them the food. They stared at it, unsure. Jake opened a sandwich and took a bite. "See? It's safe." The older girl sniffed the food. Then she took a careful bite. Her eyes widened. She passed it to her sister, who ate like she hadn't seen food in days. Jake smiled. "Now that's more like it." Back on the road, the truck rolled through the night. Jake kept stealing glances. Who were they? Where did they come from? Why were they glowing? By the time they reached Jake's small house at the edge of the woods, the younger one had fallen asleep. The older one looked at Jake with eyes full of something more than thanks. Maybe trust. Jake helped them inside. He set up a mattress in the living room, gave them blankets, and dimmed the lights. As he walked to the kitchen to pour some water, something caught his eye. A dead plant on the shelf, dry, brown, and lifeless, now stood tall and green. The leaves were moving, almost breathing. Jake stared at it. The older girl stood nearby, her hand still hovering over the plant. She looked at Jake. Jake stepped back, heart racing. "What are you?" The girl didn't speak. She just pointed to her chest and said one word, "Aria." Then she pointed to the sleeping girl, Loom. Jake whispered their names. They sounded like wind and stars. He sat down, rubbing his eyes. "I fed 2 lost kids," he muttered. "Now my dead plants, alive and glowing." Outside, the wind picked up. Far above the earth, something moved. A silent satellite shifted, its dark lens focusing on a single location, Jake's house. Inside, Jake didn't know that tonight had changed everything. Asterisk. The sister's secret. Jake didn't sleep that night. He lay on the couch, one eye half open, the other watching the glowing girls in his living room. Every now and then, Arya would stir, or Loom would let out a soft musical sigh, like a bird dreaming in slow motion. The plant they had touched? It was now growing tiny blue flowers. Jake wasn't ready to process that. He wasn't a scientist. He wasn't a soldier. He fixed machines at a dusty factory and drank instant coffee. But tonight, he was the guardian of two glowing, star-eyed mysteries. He got up before sunrise and made scrambled eggs and toast. The smell seemed to wake them. Arya sat up first, blinking slowly like a cat in sunlight. Loom followed, rubbing her eyes. "Morning," Jake said. Awkwardly, He placed the food on the table and pointed. "Eat. You'll feel better." They approached the table slowly. Loom hesitated, then looked at Arya. Arya nodded, and they began to eat. Their hands moved carefully, like they were used to being watched while they ate, or punished for it. Jake sat across from them. "Arya," he said, pointing. She nodded. "And you're Loom." The younger girl smiled slightly. Jake pointed to himself. "Jake." Arya tilted her head. "Jake," she repeated. Her voice was soft, almost too soft for this world. "Okay." Jake breathed. "So we've got names. That's a start." He took a notepad and drew a picture of the Earth, then a picture of a rocket, then a simple stick figure version of Arya and Loom inside a spaceship. Arya leaned closer. She tapped the spaceship drawing. Then she drew a jagged line, a crash, and made a sound like thunder. Boom. Jake nodded. "Crash. Got it." Then Arya pointed at the stars, then to her chest, then back at the stars again. "Home." Jake's heart beat faster. "So you're not from here," he whispered. "You're from out there." Loom made a quiet sound. She looked sick again, pale, shaking. Arya rushed to her, held her close, and placed her glowing hand on Loom's forehead. Jake watched as a soft light passed between their hands. Not fire, not electricity, something gentle, healing. Within seconds, Loom looked stronger. She smiled weakly at her sister. Jake stood frozen. That was not normal. Arya looked at him, serious now. She pointed to Loom, then made an X with her fingers, universal for danger or death. Then she pointed to the sky, mimed an explosion. Jake pieced it together. Their ship crashed. Loom was hurt, and now she was dying. Slowly. "She needs something," he guessed. "Something. From your ship?" Arya nodded. Jake rubbed his face. Okay. I need to find your ship. Where is it?" Arya frowned, clearly not understanding. Jake grabbed a map, pointed to his house, then drew a wide circle around the forest. "Is it in the woods?" Arya hesitated, then touched the map, her finger glowing faintly, and pointed to a deep, unmarked area. Jake looked at it. "That's at least 2 hours into the wild." Outside, a sudden boom echoed through the sky. Jake and Arya rushed to the window. A glowing streak was falling from the clouds. It looked like a meteor. No, a capsule. It blazed across the sky and vanished behind the mountains. Jake's heart sank. "Another ship?" Arya's face darkened. She nodded slowly and said one word, cold and sharp: "Null." Jake felt chills. Not because of the word, but the way she said it. Like it wasn't a name, it was a warning. Suddenly, the radio buzzed. Static. Then a strange voice cut through the speaker. Not English, not human, just hissing, glitchy sounds. Almost like a search signal. Arya and Loom both stiffened. They looked terrified. "They're tracking you," Jake whispered. "Aren't they?" Arya nodded again, tears forming in her eyes. Jake turned off the radio. "Okay, you can't stay here. Not if they're coming." Loom stood, shaky but determined. She held out something, a tiny shard of metal with strange glowing lines. "What's this?" Jake asked. Arya pointed to the map again, the same forest spot. She touched the shard and then his chest. Jake blinked. He felt something, a pulse, like the metal was calling to something. Something buried deep. It was a key. And Jake was the one who had to use it. Before he could speak, Arya suddenly stood tall and calm. She looked at Jake with glowing eyes and said, in perfect English, "They are coming, Jake. We have 3 days. Or Earth becomes like our home." Dead. Jake stared. She had spoken English. Clear. Fluent. "Wait," he gasped. "How did you?" Arya touched her head. "I listened. I learned." Jake stepped back. "You can learn languages in a night?" Arya looked down. "We learn. Fast. That's why they want us." Jake felt his knees go weak. He wasn't babysitting 2 lost alien sisters anymore. He was standing between humanity and something ancient, something hungry, something that had already followed the sisters across galaxies. He looked outside. The wind had changed. The birds had gone quiet. Something was coming. Asterisk, they had only just arrived. But their enemies were already here. And Earth? Earth was now the battlefield. Asterisk, the story of their fall. Jake couldn't stop staring at Arya. She had just spoken perfect English. After only 1 night. She had healed her sister with a touch. She had raised a dead plant from the grave like it was nothing more than a house chore. And now she was telling him Earth was next. Jake sat at his kitchen table, fingers tangled in his hair. The clock ticked. The sky outside was dim and gray, like the world was holding its breath. Loom sat quietly on the couch, her knees pulled up to her chest, eyes distant. She still looked pale, even after the healing. Like a battery barely holding a charge. Arya stood beside the window, her glowing fingertips gently brushing the glass. Jake finally broke the silence. "You said you came from far away. You said they destroyed your world." He looked at Arya. "Tell me everything." She turned slowly. Her eyes glowed softly, not like fire, but like a memory that refused to fade. "We were not always hunted," she began. Her voice had an echo in it, like it was reaching through time. Jake leaned forward. Arya stepped closer to Loom and sat beside her. She held her sister's hand tightly, then spoke again. "Our planet was called Aurelian. It was a place of light. Floating cities, skies of gold, oceans that sang with the wind. Our people lived in harmony. We didn't build machines to fly. We were born to fly." Jake frowned. "Wait, you could fly?" Arya nodded. "Not with wings, with thought, with feeling. Our energy connected us, to each other, to our planet." She paused. Then came the null. The room seemed to dim with that word. They were creatures of the void, not born from stars like us. They came from what lies between stars, the cold, empty dark. They do not feel. They do not create. They only feed. Jake swallowed. Feed. On energy, life, us. She looked down at Loom, who shivered. They came without warning. No ships, no words, just silence. And death. They swallowed our world city by city. We fought, we burned the skies trying, but it wasn't enough. Jake tried to picture it. A glowing world, wings of light. All of it crumbling in the dark. Arya's hands trembled. We were only children. But they knew even children of our kind held power. They hunted the strongest. They caged the youngest. They studied us. Broke us, fed off our pain. Jake stood up, pacing now. "But you escaped." Arya gave a slow nod. "Our parents put us in a stasis pod. They used the last of their light to send us away. We watched our world die from orbit." Her voice cracked. Jake looked away, his heart twisting. These weren't just strange glowing girls. These were survivors of a massacre. Floating orphans from a dead civilization. Arya continued. "We drifted for years, cold, alone, no voice to call for help. No star would answer. Until. She pointed at the sky. Until we found this world. Jake shook his head. You crashed here, and you've been hiding since? Arya hesitated. Then said, we weren't the only ones who came. Jake froze. The Null sent hunters after us. Small ones, quiet ones. But deadly. They live among you now. Wearing your shape. Smiling with your faces. Jake's blood ran cold. You mean they're already here? Arya looked straight at him. Yes, they hide in your systems. Your cities, watching, waiting. They knew we would land here one day. Jake took a step back. Then we're not just in danger, we're already too late. No, Arya said firmly. We have time, but not much. She pulled something from her bag, a crystal shard, softly pulsing with blue light. This is part of the core. From our ship. If we can find the rest, I can complete the signal. It will reach our people. Jake blinked. I thought your people were gone. Arya's lips curled into a small, sad smile. Not all. Scattered, but alive, waiting for a sign. Jake looked at Loom, who now lay curled on her side, breathing slow. She doesn't have long, does she? No, Arya said, tears forming. Without full core energy, she will fade, not die like you do. Just disappear, Jake nodded. Then we find the ship. He grabbed his jacket and flashlight. Before they could move, the radio sparked again. But this time, there was no static. A voice came through. Signal confirmed. Energy match found. Extraction begins. Arya's face turned white. Jake looked at her. That's them, isn't it? She didn't answer. She didn't need to, because just outside the window, deep in the trees, something moved. Not walking, not crawling. Floating. Jake whispered. They found you. Asterisk. The truth of their past had been told. But the present? It had arrived, and it wasn't knocking. It was already inside the walls. Asterisk. The arrival. The voice on the radio faded into static. Jake stood frozen, the hairs on his arms standing straight. Arya's glowing eyes were locked on the dark trees beyond the window. Loom, still weak, clung to her sister's hand, eyes wide with silent fear. Jake whispered, What does extraction begins mean? Arya replied without looking away, her voice barely a breath. It means they've started the hunt. Suddenly the lights flickered. Not once, not twice. Then they died completely. The house fell into silence. No hum of electricity. No distant sounds from the forest. Only the sound of their own breathing. Jake grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen drawer. Click. Nothing. Dead. He tapped it. Shook. It was fine this morning. Then he remembered. The null feed on energy. Not just from people. From everything. The house was being drained. Outside, the darkness pressed in against the windows like a living thing. And in that darkness, movement. Not one. Several. Floating shadows that didn't walk. They hovered, silently, like ink bleeding across space. Human-like shapes, but wrong. Too tall, too still, Arya whispered. They've taken human forms. But only for disguise. Inside, they are empty. Jake's heart slammed in his chest. They know you're here, he said. No, Arya whispered. They know you're here now, too. Jake backed away from the window. We need to move. Now, Arya gently lifted Loom, cradling her as if she weighed nothing. Jake grabbed his truck keys, but when he pressed the key fob, nothing responded. The truck outside sat still. Dead. They've killed it, Jake muttered. They don't want us to run, Arya said. They want us to fear. Jake looked at her. Do you have any weapons? Arya shook her head. We fight with light, but I am too weak, Jake sighed. Then we fight with earth things. He grabbed the baseball bat from behind the door and a flare from his emergency drawer. This'll have to do. Arya's eyes widened. That what is it? Jake smirked. Fire stick. Very human. Then came the knock. But not on the door. On The window, just a single tap, then another. Like a child playing. Jake turned. A face stared in through the glass, except it wasn't a face. It had too many eyes, too smooth. No mouth. Its skin reflected the moonlight like oil, and it was smiling, without lips. Arya turned to Loom, whispering something in their native language. A symbol glowed faintly on her sister's wrist. Loom blinked slowly, her eyes flickering. "She's fading," Arya said. "We must get to the crash site." Jake nodded. "Let's take the woods. They won't expect that." Arya hesitated. "That's where the pod is, but also where they are strongest." Jake turned to her. "Then we go in fast and quiet." They slipped out the back, the night air sharp with unnatural cold. The forest behind the house was dense, wet with fog. Trees stood like silent guards, and the stars above were slowly vanishing, blotted out by something big and moving. They were being watched as they moved deeper into the trees. The silence was broken only by Loom's shallow breaths and the crunch of Jake's boots. But after a few minutes, Jake realized something terrifying. Their shadows weren't matching their steps. He looked behind them. One extra shadow floating. Arya turned just in time. Her hand flared with pale blue light. The Null leapt forward, its face shifting into Jake's own. His voice came from its mouth. "Give them to us, Jake. We'll leave you be." Jake froze. That was his voice. His own words from earlier. "How are they using my voice?" "They hear thoughts," Arya whispered. "They twist them." The creature lunged. Jake struck with the bat right through it. The Null shimmered like smoke and reformed behind him. It was toying with them. Suddenly, Arya yelled something in her language, and a bright pulse of light shot from her hand, blinding and loud. The Null shrieked, not in pain, but in annoyance, and vanished into the trees. Jake gasped. "What the hell was that?" "Warning flare," Arya said. "It won't hold it long." They ran, branches snapped behind them. Leaves rustled, but there was no wind. Then, up ahead, a small crater, glowing faintly. The crash site. The pod was there, half buried in the earth, like a wounded animal. Its surface pulsed with familiar energy, Arya's energy. The same blue light that had healed Loom. "We're close," she said. Jake helped her pry open a panel. Inside, a crystal core, cracked but still glowing. Arya placed Loom near it. Instantly, Loom's breathing steadied. "She's stabilizing," Arya said, smiling faintly. "This is working." Jake turned to keep watch, and that's when he saw it. Across the field, barely visible, a line of red lights blinking, dozens of them, military. "Drones." Arya turned pale. "That's not Null." "No," Jake muttered. "That's human." Helicopters appeared on the horizon, their blades slicing through the silence. Loudspeakers barked. "This is the International Anomaly Unit. Step away from the object. Hands above your head." Arya backed up. "They tracked us." "They always do. Every time we try to find help. They think you're the threat." Jake whispered. A laser appeared on Arya's chest. Jake stepped in front of her, arms raised. "They're not enemies. They're refugees." The soldiers didn't lower their weapons. Then came a sound behind them, a howl. Not animal, not machine. A Null warden emerged from the trees, twice as tall, pure darkness, energy crackling around. Its limbs. The soldiers aimed at Jake and Arya, but the real monster was behind them. Jake shouted, "It's not them. It's that." And then everything went white. Earth had arrived at the crossroads. Protect the visitors, or become a feeding ground. And as the first shot was fired, humanity made its first fatal choice. The hunter. There was light. Then there was nothing. No sound. No breath. Just a blank, blinding silence. When Jake opened his eyes, everything was chaos. The ground was scorched. The trees surrounding the crash site were gone, vaporized into ash. The military vehicles were overturned, some still burning. A blackened helicopter rotor spun slowly, creaking like a dying windmill. And in the center of it all stood the warden. Massive, unmoving, a humanoid shape forged from darkness itself. Its body flickered, glitching like a broken video. Where its face should have been was a void, pure emptiness pulling in light. Dead soldiers littered the field around it, their weapons melted or frozen solid. Jake coughed, stumbling to his feet. Arya? Loom? He turned and saw Arya kneeling beside Loom, shielding her with her body. Both were alive, barely. A faint shimmer of energy surrounded them like a force field. Arya's last defense. Jake's voice cracked. That thing. It wiped out everyone. Arya looked up. It's not just a hunter. It's a warden. They are the enforcers of the null. Enforcers? Jake blinked. What does that even mean? It doesn't kill out of need, Arya said softly. It kills to send a message. The warden tilted its head, sensing movement. Jake instinctively raised his hands, but the thing didn't move toward him. It just watched, waiting. Then it spoke, but not with a mouth, with Jake's voice. You are marked. Jake froze. What? The warden pointed at him. Not at Arya, not at Loom. At Jake. Arya stood slowly, her body shaking. No, that's not possible. Jake stepped back. What's not possible? Arya's gaze locked with his. It's tracking you. You're the beacon. Jake's mind raced. No, I'm just a guy. A nobody. I work in a factory. I fix engines. I don't glow. I don't float. You carry something. Inside you, Arya said. Something ancient, maybe dormant. But it's waking up. Jake grabbed his head. No, this is wrong. This isn't my story. But deep inside, something whispered. You've always felt different. Since childhood, unexplained dreams, static in his ears. Lights flickering around him when he was angry. A plant that bloomed. In his hand once, which he thought was a coincidence. They weren't coincidences. The null didn't track Arya and Loom by accident. They were following him, and the worst part? He didn't know why. Suddenly, the warden raised its hand. The earth cracked, and something climbed out. More. Null. Smaller, spider-like. Slithering, clicking. They flooded the crash site like a swarm of shadows. Skittering toward Arya and Lume. Jake moved instinctively, grabbing a fallen soldier's rifle. No time to think, just aim. Just shoot. Bang. Bang. The bullets slowed the creatures but didn't kill them. They burst into smoke and reformed behind him. Jake shouted, "We have to run." Arya didn't move. "We can't outrun this." Jake turned to her. "Then what do we do?" Arya touched his chest right over his heart. "You need to wake it up," she said. "The thing inside you." Jake laughed bitterly. "What am I? A space wizard?" "You are more than human," she said. "Your blood remembers stars." Behind them, the warden advanced slowly, its arms outstretched like a puppeteer. The null swarm circled in, hissing. Loom coughed and raised a trembling hand. A tiny spark of blue energy floated from her fingers. Then another. The pods cracked. Core beside her pulsed once. Then again. Jake reached out and grabbed it. Pain. Raw. Burning light shot through his arm, through his spine, into his skull. He screamed. Memories that weren't his slammed into him. A city in the sky made of glass. A being of fire teaching him to shape stars. A hand reaching across space. His hand. Jake collapsed. Arya caught him. "It's waking," she said. His eyes fluttered open. They were glowing. The same glow as Arya. The same as Lume. But stronger. Brighter. Wilder. Jake stood slowly. The warden paused. The swarm stopped. He raised his hand and the null twitched. Then, without warning, he exploded with light, not fire. Not magic. An energy storm that sent a pulse in all directions. The warden staggered. The swarm evaporated in midair, and Jake just stood there, breathing. Hard, eyes burning blue, Arya stared, her voice full of awe. "You are not just marked." She stepped back. "You are the key." Jake turned to her, dazed. "Key to what?" She looked up at the sky. A crack was forming in the clouds, ripping across the stars like a scar. To the end or the beginning? Asterisk. The hunter had come for prey. But it found something else, an awakening. And now, Earth's future was no longer in the stars. It was standing on the ground, trying to remember who it really was. Asterisk the gift and the gamble. Jake didn't sleep that night. How could he? After exploding into light, vaporizing a fleet of nightmare creatures, and being called a key by a glowing alien girl? That kind of thing tends to mess with your ability to just lie down and rest. He sat near the still smoking crash site, his hands trembling, his heartbeat pounding like a war drum. Arya stood nearby, watching the stars. Loom rested in the pod, her energy stabilized for now, her body faintly glowing. And above them, a rift in the sky, faint, long, cracking open the stars like someone had cut the night with a blade. Jake couldn't stop staring at it. He finally broke the silence. "What is that?" Arya didn't look at him. "A scar, left behind from your outburst. Your energy isn't quiet, it sends ripples." Jake gave a bitter laugh. "So I scream light and accidentally rip a hole in space? Great. I'm a cosmic jackhammer." "You're waking up," she said. "But your power, it's unstable, raw, dangerous." Jake turned to her. "Then help me control it. Teach me." Arya hesitated. "We don't have time." She stepped forward, holding something. In her hand, a crystal. Smooth, glowing like starlight trapped in glass. "This is what remains of our ship's memory core," she said. "It holds fragments of our past and visions of possible futures." Jake took it slowly. The moment his fingers touched the surface, his vision blurred. A vision he was standing on a dead earth. No trees. No water. The sky was black, filled with swirling shadows. The null swarmed like ants, feeding on the last of humanity's cities. In the middle of the wasteland stood a figure. Him. But older, battle-scarred, eyes glowing like suns. He stood between the last of the human race and the final null warden, but he was alone, and behind him, the stars were turning away. Jake gasped and dropped the crystal. What the hell was that? Arya knelt beside him. That was one of the paths, a future where you fight alone and lose. Jake looked at her. And the other path? Arya stood. We build the signal. We call the survivors of Aurelian. They answer. We unite. We fight back. Jake paused. Sounds good to me. What's the problem? Arya's jaw tightened. To power the signal, someone must merge with the core completely. Jake frowned. Merge? Arya looked down. Give themselves to it. Mind, body, energy, everything. Jake stared at her. Wait, are you saying someone has to die? No, not die, she said softly. But they won't return the same. Jake went silent. Loom stirred in her sleep. Her face, for the first time, looked peaceful. Jake looked. Between the sisters. You were going to do it, weren't you? Sacrifice yourself. Arya said nothing. Jake stood up. No, we find another way. There isn't one, Arya said. Not in time. She turned to him. Unless. Jake narrowed his eyes. Unless what? Arya hesitated. Unless you do it. Silence. The wind passed through the trees like a warning whisper. Jake laughed, but it wasn't funny. So I just give up my soul to light a galactic flare? You're the only one who can survive the merge, Arya said. Your blood. It's not fully human. Someone put something inside you long ago, something that was never meant to stay hidden. Jake rubbed his eyes. You keep saying that like it's comforting. It means you were chosen, she said. Yeah, well, I never signed up for the Interstellar Chosen One package, Jake snapped. I just wanted to help two lost girls on the road. Arya stepped closer. And you did. But now they're not just lost girls, and you're not just Jake. Before he could answer, the ground beneath them trembled, a flash in the sky. Then another ship's not null, sleek, metallic, human. Arya's face fell. Not again. Drones landed in a circle around the crash site. Scanning, a loudspeaker crackled. Attention, you are harboring Class 10 alien fugitives. Stand down and submit for genetic screening. Jake looked at Arya. They mean you. Arya didn't respond. Secondary target, Jacob Collins. Local civilian, DNA anomaly flagged. Jake's mouth fell open. Wait. They know about me? They've known for years, Arya whispered. You've been monitored, watched. Jake backed away. This was never about you two, was it? Arya touched his hand. We didn't lead them here. You did, without knowing it. A soldier stepped forward in heavy armor. His visor glowed. Red. Then he took off his helmet. Jake stared. It was his face, but older, colder. No warmth in the eyes. No soul in the voice. Jacob Collins, he said. You're coming with us. Arya stepped between them, her hands glowing. But the copy of Jake just smiled. You really don't know what you are. Do you? Jake whispered. What the hell is going on? Then the clone stepped forward and whispered in his ear. You're not the weapon, Jake. You're the vault. And we're here to open you. And everything exploded into light. The gamble had been placed. The gift had been offered. And now Jake had to choose, surrender his soul to save a dying world, or unlock the truth that could destroy it. The return and the rise light. Endless, searing light. Jake was caught in it, not floating, not falling, but suspended. Around him, memories he never lived flickered like dying stars. A boy laughing on a balcony of light. A warrior with Arya's eyes holding back a storm. A creature of shadow whispering into his sleeping mind. You are mine. Then, silence. Jake awoke with a gasp. His body was covered in a thin layer of crystal dust. He lay on the forest floor, but the crash site was gone. No pod, no drones. No Null, no Arya, no Lume. The trees around him had been turned to glass, frozen mid-sway. Like time had paused. He stood slowly. He wasn't alone. Across from him stood the other Jake, the clone. His face, but colder, marked with null symbols. Flanked by a squad of armored soldiers, half human, half machine, and behind them, the Warden. Bigger, stronger, now with 4 arms, each one humming with power. You opened, the clone said. Now we complete the extraction. Jake's fists clenched. Where are they? Arya. Loom. They're gone, the clone replied. Taken to the upper node for observation. Jake didn't know what that meant, but it wasn't good. You lied, he growled. You said I was a vault. What's inside me? The clone smiled. Not what, Jake? Who? Suddenly, the air shimmered. A new voice echoed, not from a speaker, not from a mouth, but from everywhere. He is the last echo of our alien. It wasn't Arya. It wasn't Lume. It was their father. A projection formed, tall, regal, with eyes like twin suns. His voice hummed like ancient music. We placed our hope in a child. Not of our blood, but of our energy. A human with the capacity to carry starlight. To pass unnoticed among them until the time came. Jake staggered. You mean I've been some kind of secret weapon? No, the echo said. You were a bridge, the clone scoffed, and we're here to burn it. The Warden raised its arms. Jake's body reacted before his mind did. His hands lit up, energy flowing through his veins like a second heartbeat. He felt Arya's power, Loom's gentleness, even something deeper, Ancient pain, like the grief of 1,000 lost voices echoing in his soul. Jake stepped forward. No. More running. With a roar, he raised both arms and released a pulse wave of energy, not like before. This was controlled. Directed, precise. The soldiers flew back. Trees shattered. The glass forest cracked and collapsed, but the warden stood firm. Unmoved. It struck. Wave of darkness swept toward Jake, devouring sound, light, even memory. Jake felt himself slipping, forgetting his name, his past, even his purpose. Until a voice. Arya. Jake, remember who you are. He held onto her voice like a rope. The null shadow reached for his heart, but Jake pushed back, not with force, but with memory. He thought of his mother's laugh, his father's old radio. The first time Loom smiled at him. Light exploded from him, not white, not blue, but gold. The warden shrieked, its form breaking, shattering like black glass in the wind. The clone Jake dropped to his knees, eyes wide. It's not possible. You were never meant to survive the merge. Jake stepped forward. You were built to take power. I was made to protect it. A thunderous hum echoed across the forest. From above, a great shadow parted the clouds. Ships, dozens, sleek, silver, glowing with the same gold hue in Jake's veins. Aurelian survivors. They had heard the signal. Jake turned to the sky. Breathless. He saw her, Arya, standing at the edge of one of the descending ships, Loom beside her, her hand pressed to the glass, smiling. They made it. The clone lunged at Jake, desperate, furious. Jake caught his wrist. And for a moment, he saw something. Inside him. A boy. A scared copy made to feel nothing, who had spent his whole life in shadow. Jake let him go. No more war, he said. Then the clone flickered and vanished. Dissolved into ash. The battle was over. Epilogue. Weeks later, the world was changed. Governments had seen the null. Survivors whispered of golden ships in the sky. Satellites couldn't explain the rift that closed above the forest. Jake stood on a cliff, looking at the stars. Arya joined him. You still hear them, don't you? She asked. Jake nodded. The voices, the memories. You'll always carry them now. He turned to her. Where do we go from here? She smiled. Wherever you want. The stars are listening. He looked at her, and then at Loom laughing in the distance, running across a field of glowing grass. Jake smiled. I think I'll feed some more strangers first. See where it takes me. Asterisk. He gave food to 2 starving alien sisters. They gave him the universe in return. And now, he's ready to protect it.